You can't prepare for a mystery that begins in plain sight. He walked into the store just after 3:17 p.m. A quiet man in a grey hoodie, hands tucked in his pockets, head slightly lowered. Not enough to raise suspicion, just enough to avoid unnecessary attention. 2 security cameras caught his entrance from 2 different angles. His footsteps echoed faintly, his reflection sliding across the glass doors. Everything about him was ordinary, until it wasn't. What happened next was caught on video, or rather, what didn't happen. There was no footage of him inside the store, not a single frame. One moment, he walked through the front door, pushing it open with his shoulder like hundreds of customers before him. The door closed behind him, and then nothing. He didn't appear in any aisle, didn't show up near the shelves, never approached the counter, never left the building. Security footage from inside the store shows customers walking, browsing, waiting in line, all normal. But the man in the grey hoodie, he was gone, not invisible, not blurred, simply erased, like he was never there. The cashier at the front didn't remember seeing him. When questioned, she swore she never saw anyone matching that description enter. Maybe he left before I noticed, she said, but the footage proved otherwise. He never exited. He didn't slip out unnoticed. There were only 2 doors. Both were under constant surveillance. Investigators reviewed the footage repeatedly. They synced every camera. They adjusted frame rates. They brought in technicians, hoping it was a glitch, a dropped recording segment, a synchronization issue. But the footage was flawless. Every time stomp aligned. Every angle showed what it was supposed to, except him. People joked nervously. Maybe he slipped into a parallel dimension between aisle 3 and 4. They laughed, but the room always grew quiet after, because no one could explain it. That was the beginning. And as bizarre as it was only the first crack in a much deeper fracture of reality. The first step in solving a disappearance is identifying the missing person. But what if the person never existed to begin with? The man in the footage, or rather, the man who disappeared after it, had no ID on record. No wallet, no phone was found in or around the premises. No fingerprints, no eyewitnesses. Law enforcement issued a sketch based on the surveillance footage, hoping someone would recognize him. They circulated it across nearby neighborhoods, bus stops, shelters, clinics. Nothing. No matches in the National Missing Persons database. No social security, no name. One officer thought he looked familiar, but couldn't place him. Another was convinced he'd seen him outside the station a week before, sitting quietly on a bench. But the moment he tried to remember details, what he was wearing, what direction he walked, everything blurred, like a dream escaping the moment you wake up. The sketch artist claimed the eyes were the hardest part. I couldn't get them right, she said. Every time I looked away and tried to draw them again, I saw a different face. One curious investigator tried facial recognition AI on the footage. The result, an error. Facial data is inconsistent. Weird noise. They tried again with a different program. Same result. The contours of his face didn't align with any human facial pattern the software could process. Not because it was fake, because it was too vague, too fluid. The image data didn't hold. The phrase they kept returning to in hushed conversations was identity instability, a term usually reserved for digital anomalies, not human beings. People who claimed to remember seeing him would later change their stories. Maybe I was wrong, they'd say, eyes slightly glazed. I must have confused him with someone else. The shift was subtle, but eerily uniform, like a collective mental reboot. small details erased, adjusted, reprogrammed. But one thing remained consistent. No one could remember his voice. They all agreed he never spoke. Not a word. Not when he entered. Not before he disappeared. Not even in the few seconds they thought they saw him. He was like a placeholder in the simulation, rendered just enough to pass, but never fully written. 3 months after the incident, the convenience store closed. No notice, no warning. Just a paper sign taped to the glass. Closed until further notice. The lights were off. The inside was empty. Locals assumed it was temporary, a lease issue, maybe a renovation. But the building didn't reopen. Weeks passed, then months. The property records updated not to a new owner, but to a blank holding company with no contact information. When one neighbor looked it up online, the address was listed as a null property, an error marker in the county database. Then came the demolition. One cold morning, without prior announcement, a crew arrived. They began tearing the store down before the sun rose. No signs, no permits displayed. By midday, the store was gone, just a flattened patch of concrete surrounded by temporary fencing. When asked, city officials said no demolition was scheduled for that site. "We're not aware of any approved teardown in that zone," one clerk said. Even stranger, photos of the store began disappearing from local directories. Google Maps still had a street view, but the business was delisted. Yelp removed its page entirely. Reviews vanished. Social media posts tagged at the location now redirected to a blank entry. Some residents noticed something else. They couldn't quite remember what the store sold. "I used to stop there for snacks," one woman said, frowning. "Or maybe it was a pharmacy. No, wait, it was a cafe." The more they thought about it, the less they were sure. Everyone remembered going, but no one remembered why. What was once a physical place became a cognitive void, a stretch of sidewalk no one lingered near, a shadow in the corner of the neighborhood map. But even more unsettling, when questioned, newer residents had no recollection that a store ever stood there at all. They said it was just an empty lot. It had always been an empty lot. At first, it seemed like a breakthrough. A man came forward, middle-aged, blue denim jacket, hands shaking as he spoke. He claimed he had seen the man in the grey hoodie, not just on the day of the incident, but before, several times in fact. He said the man would walk past his flower stand every other day, never buying anything, just passing by, silent, not rude, not unfriendly, just unengaged. "I noticed him because he never looked at the flowers," he said. "Everyone looks, even if they don't buy, but not him." He walked like the world around him wasn't real. He was clear, specific, dates, times, outfits, even a peculiar detail, a thread hanging from the man's sleeve, always the left one. The detective assigned to the case recorded everything. The witness was calm, cooperative, detailed. Finally, someone who remembered. Finally, a thread they could follow. They scheduled a follow-up interview 2 days later. When the officer returned, the flower stand was still there, but the man wasn't. Instead, a younger woman was tending the stand. When asked about the man, she blinked slowly. "My uncle," she said. "He passed away 3 months ago." The officer froze. That wasn't possible. He had spoken to him just 48 hours earlier. He showed her the recording from his phone, the man speaking, describing the subject in the grey hoodie. She shook her head. "That's not my uncle, that's me. I took over the stand when he died." She didn't recognize the man in the video. She had never seen him before. The video file glitched after the first 45 seconds. The audio scrambled. The screen froze. Then it played back in silence. The face in the video blurred, smudged like a corrupted file. The officer sent the video for forensic analysis. The result, unrecoverable. Metadata, inconsistent. One expert said, half-jokingly, "It's like the footage doesn't want to be remembered." And strangely enough, the officer stopped remembering the interview too. It took effort, focus, reviewing his notes again and again. But every time he set them down, the memory faded. He could recall the outline, but the details slipped like fog through fingers. That was the moment he realized this case wasn't just about a disappearance. Something was actively suppressing memory. Not just one person's, but everyone's. 2 weeks after the incident, a cashier at a completely different store, 15 miles away, made a discovery she couldn't explain. It was a quiet afternoon. She was doing a routine till reconciliation when she noticed something strange mixed in with the receipts. It was older, slightly yellowed, printed in a different format than their current system. The time was 3:19 p.m., the same day the man in the grey hoodie disappeared. The receipt listed only one item. Unregistered item. Code 0000X. The cost, $0. No card used. No cash registered. Just the time, date, and a transaction ID that didn't match any internal logs. She was about to throw it away, assuming it was a printer test slip, but paused when she noticed something on the back. A handwritten note, faint but unmistakable. Still here, still waiting. She turned it in to her manager, who laughed it off. Probably a prank, he said, or some weird promo glitch. But she couldn't shake the feeling. She took a photo of the receipt and uploaded it to Reddit. Within hours, the post was removed. Not flagged, removed. She reposted it with a blurred image. This time, it stayed up longer. Long enough for a user to comment something chilling. "I've seen one of these before. Found it tucked into my backpack after shopping at a place that doesn't exist anymore." More users chimed in. One found a similar note in a book they never remembered buying. Another discovered a receipt like it under their car mat. Same timestamp, same $0 item, same mysterious code. Some theorized these were anchor points, digital markers that prove something did happen, even if the world forgot. Others believed the notes were left behind by people who disappeared, struggling to maintain connection. As for the original cashier, she disappeared from the internet 3 days later. Her account was deleted, her posts wiped, her comments replaced with deleted. Someone visited the store, hoping to interview her, but no one remembered a cashier by that name. 3 weeks into the investigation, a new angle surfaced, not from sight, but from sound. A night shift security guard at a nearby electronics shop had taken a personal interest in the case. He had access to the local surveillance feeds and spent his downtime scanning through archived footage, syncing them with timestamps from the day the man vanished. At exactly 3:19 p.m., he found something strange. It wasn't visual, it was audio. From a back alley camera, one with no microphone, came a faint whispering sound. He checked again. The camera had no input source for sound. Yet in the playback, clear as static, came a voice. It didn't speak a language he could identify. It wasn't garbled, just unfamiliar, rhythmic, repetitive, like a mantra. He enhanced the file and isolated the waveform. The pattern repeated every 2.4 seconds. It grew louder the longer he listened. He described it as a voice that wasn't meant to be heard by ears. Eventually, he stopped the file, heart racing. He claimed it stayed in his head like an echo. Later that night, he dreamed of a room he'd never seen, a small, empty store, with a man standing silently near the door, his back turned. The next morning, he played the audio again, but now it was gone. The file was silent. He checked the raw footage. Nothing. Even stranger, the timestamp on the video had changed. Now it read 4:02 a.m., a full 12 hours off. The system had never glitched before. He burned the audio onto a CD and left it in an envelope labeled, "If I forget, this is why." The envelope was found a week later, empty. At first, it seemed like coincidence. A woman in a nearby apartment complex posted anonymously on a local forum. "Did anyone else have a weird dream last night? A store, a man with no face, a bell that never stopped ringing." She didn't expect any replies, but within hours, over a dozen responses came in. "I had the same dream. There was a mirror in the back, but it didn't reflect anything. I saw the man too. He looked at me, and I forgot my own name. There was a door that wouldn't open unless I closed my eyes." They were all describing the same place, a store that no longer existed, with shelves that stretched too far back, and a man in grey standing motionless near the entrance. A local sleep study clinic caught wind of the thread. One of their patients had woken up screaming the night before, claiming they were trapped in an aisle that kept repeating. Another whispered, "He walked in, but never left." Not really. The dream became a viral post, shared across paranormal subreddits, then quietly removed. Some reposted it elsewhere, but most links led to 404 errors. Researchers tried to find a pattern. Some thought it was mass suggestion, a kind of sleep contagion. But the timestamps didn't line up. Some people posted about it before they could have read anyone else's story. Others had sketched the store layout days earlier. One image, in particular, stood out. Drawn in charcoal, it showed a man without eyes. Not hollow sockets, just smooth, featureless skin, like a mannequin. Above him, scribbled in the corner, were the words, "He went in. Now we can't wake up." The person who posted it never responded to comments. Their account was deleted within 24 hours. Some believe the dream wasn't just a dream, that it was a shared memory leaking through from wherever the man had gone. Or worse, that we had all gone there too and forgotten our way back. 2 months into the silence, a woman stepped forward with a story that turned the investigation upside down. She claimed the man in the footage was her brother. Not someone she saw on the news, not a vague resemblance. Her actual brother, James. She recognized the gait, the way he tilted his head, even the slight inward bend of his right foot when he walked. She brought childhood photos. Same jawline, same posture, same tiny scar under the eye. But when the investigators checked the name, there was no James. Not in birth records, not in census files, not in medical or school history, she insisted. She remembered growing up with him. She remembered the day he disappeared. He said he was going to the store. I was 11. He never came back. She was emotional, but steady. Her story never changed. When asked why she hadn't come forward sooner, her reply was chilling. "Because I forgot about him until yesterday." She described it like a fog lifting. One moment she was cleaning out an old box. The next, a wave of memory hit her. His voice, his room, the way he always whistled when nervous. A lifetime of memories crashing in all at once. The oddest part, no one else in her family remembered him. Not her parents, not her cousins. Old family photos showed gaps, places where someone clearly should have been standing, but wasn't. frames with smiling faces, and a mysterious space in the middle. One picture had writing on the back, James' 5th birthday, but there were only 4 children in the photo. She submitted to a psychological evaluation. No signs of delusion or trauma response. She was clear, consistent, and deeply confused. The final twist came when she visited the site where the store once stood. She collapsed. Paramedics reported severe disorientation, memory confusion, and partial aphasia. She kept repeating the same phrase. "He's not gone, just misplaced." She hasn't spoken since. Nearly 5 months had passed. The case had grown cold, or rather, buried under static. Then came the report. A man was spotted walking down a rural road just outside town. Dusk had fallen, and the sky was low with mist. A passing driver slowed down, thinking the figure might need help. Grey hoodie, head lowered, hands in pockets. The driver rolled down his window. "You all right, man?" he called. The man didn't respond, didn't turn, didn't stop walking. The driver described an overwhelming chill, not from the air, but from inside his chest. "Like standing too close to a wrong answer," he said. He pulled over, stepped out, but the man was gone. No cars nearby, no houses, just trees and road. The dashcam, it glitched, static, blackout during those exact 2 minutes. A day later, a woman across town claimed to see the same man standing in the middle of a grocery aisle. Not moving, not blinking. When she looked again, he was gone. Employees said no one matching the description had entered. Then another report, and another. No video evidence, no receipts, no memories except from the people who saw him. It was like he had become an idea, a shadow that occasionally took shape in the minds of others. They weren't sure if he was real anymore, but they were absolutely sure of one thing: he was still walking. 6 months after the case began, the department officially closed it. Unsolved, untraceable, a statistical outlier with no path forward. The case file was locked, labeled code black, subject undefined. Only a handful of personnel had access. It should have ended there, but it didn't. A junior officer doing system maintenance discovered something strange. The case folder, sealed by protocol, had new files inside it. Audio logs, transcripts, camera screenshots from locations no one had input. None of them had upload timestamps. They just existed. One clip showed a reflection in a bus window. The man in the grey hoodie, seated across from no one, facing the aisle. No bus records existed for that time or location. Another file contained a log entry, dated 2 weeks into the future. It read, "Subject spotted, pattern repeating, attempting communication." A printout was made and shared with internal IT. By the next day, the file was gone. The system reset. No logs, no error flags, no traces. The officer who discovered it submitted a written report. It was shredded. By whom? No one admitted it. Now, the files appear at random intervals, usually late at night, always encrypted, always temporary. Some claim the data only appears when no one is looking directly at the screen, like it's waiting for something or someone. It's easy to think a mystery like this would stay in the public eye, that forums would thrive, that documentaries would flood YouTube, that urban legends would explode. But the opposite happened. People stopped talking about it, gradually at first, then completely. Reddit threads went quiet. Facebook groups were archived. YouTubers who began covering the case either deleted their videos or changed the topic midway through. Some never uploaded again. One researcher had compiled a detailed timeline, every anomaly, every clue. It was set to publish on a fringe theory blog. The night before, he emailed a colleague. "I think I figured out what really happened, but it doesn't want me to share it." His blog, offline the next day. His social media erased. His email bounced back as not found. Friends said he'd moved away. No forwarding address. Locals began referring to the case only by a nickname, the Vanishing. No one said the man's name, not because they didn't know it, but because they couldn't remember. It wasn't taboo. It was forgotten, or more accurately, suppressed. It was as if the world had decided, collectively, that some truths were too sharp to hold. And so, it folded the edges, filed them away, buried the details. But the silence wasn't peace. It was a warning, because deep down, everyone who remembered, even a fragment, knew one thing. He wasn't gone. He was just outside a frame. If you want more stories like this, you must have to like, share, comment, and last but not least, subscribe.